Okay.
Okay, everybody, we're live on the live stream.
Okay, I'd like to call to order the Board of Trustees meeting for Monday, February 12th, 2024. First we'll go around the room. My name is Mark Kissinger. I'm the trustee and the president of the Library Trustees. Michelle?
Michelle Walsh, co-vice president.
Sarah Patterson, trustee.
Charmaine Wigersinger, trustee and co-vice president.
Caroline Bercatella, trustee and secretary.
Laura DeBetta, trustee.
Lisa Skoons, trustee and UHLS board liaison.
Sherry Whiting, board treasurer.
Jeff Kirkpatrick, director.
Okay, thanks. The first order of business is public participation. I'm told we have 5 or 6 folks that would like to speak. And so again, 3 minutes. And if you want to come to the mic, that would be better because it'll be on the video or pronounced. You don't have to come to the mic, but we recommend people come to the mic if they want to speak. So do we have a
Trudy, wait.
Trudy? Okay.
Hi, I'm Trudy Quake, Bethlehem Neighbors for Peace. Bethlehem Neighbors for Peace has been banned from using the library meeting rooms for 1 year. We've been sanctioned for selling books on 12/5, which we did not do, and charged with violating the library's anti-harassment policy. Not one member of Bethlehem Neighbors for Peace harassed anyone. BNP members were in fact harassed on 12/5 by angry individuals who did not agree with our anti-Zionist speaker, Nico Pellet. Nico Pellet was also harassed by the same group of individuals. Allow me to provide a brief historical context for our work in advocating for peace. Over 2 decades ago, BNP began having almost monthly events at the Bethlehem Library. We have programs on a wide range of topics from healthcare to Black Lives Matter to war. Until 12/5, we never asked anyone to leave. We never called the police. The list of programs that BNP has sponsored at the library over the past 20 years is long. The following represents only a sampling of a long-time commitment to fighting racism, opposing war, promoting diversity, improving the environment, and facilitating the exchange of ideas. We believe our efforts have helped to make our library a community resource that we're proud of. With the programs we've offered, we've persisted in our efforts to bring perspectives, issues, and information to the library that we believe needs to be heard. In 2004, A Day in Afghanistan, a slide presentation with Connie Hood, a photographer. 2005, Iran and Syria, a dialogue. 2007, Poetry Night with special guest Larry Winters and an open mic. 2007, Nuclear Weapons Waste in War. 2009, hydrofracking, toxic gas drilling in New York State. 2010, Tom Ellis, a book review of Shamshad Ahmad's book, Rounded Up, Artificial Terrorists and Muslim Entrapment After 9/11. 2011, Forum, Civil Liberties in Peril, Andrea Callan, attorney and statewide attorney advocacy coordinator of the New York Civil Liberties Union. 2012, Integrating Del Mar 1957. We had the author of that book, Arlen Westbrook, and Mickey Kahn, who was one of the families that integrated Del Mar in 1957. 2013, Tom Ellis, Talk on
30 seconds.
Talk on Uranium Weapons. 2013, Paul Ream, Israel and Palestine. Paul Ream shared what he witnessed of Palestinian life under Israeli occupation. 2015, Resisting War, Vietnam to Iraq. 2017, Fascism and Populist Authoritarianism. 2018, Fracking Gas, the plant at Sheraton Hollow. 2019, Immigration, the River and the Wall.
Time.
Hazel. Leslie.
I had an article I was going to read, but I was having some trouble with my vision, so I'm not going to read the article. I think Mary's going to read it. I just wanted to share some thoughts. We've been facing a lot of harassment online and name calling and really anti-intellectual policies. And this was sent to me by a scholar who was responding to different situations around the country, being unable to speak the truth or a version of the truth. And particularly on Facebook, which we have faced as well. And the response was, I would never dignify such people with a response. They are not intellectuals. They are ideological assassins. They don't write to seek truth. They write to engage in character assassination, which is what we at BNP have been subjected to since December. They can go and have their conversations with people of their own type. So there's a huge difference between engaging in an intellectual debate and looking for truth and ideas and solutions. I have a 90-year-old friend who's a former Presbyterian minister, and I went to visit her. She's retired, and I went to visit her about a month ago, and I was explaining everything that happened. And she'd been working for Palestinian issues for 40 years. She pulled out this article from 1994 and gave it to me. And she gave me this book. It's called The Future of Peace, written 2003. The author, Scott Hunt, is now a fully practicing Buddhist monk in California, but he was at the time traveling all over the world. And he was talking to peace activists all over the world about political situations and war and everything else. If you do not have this book in this library, I would highly recommend that you get it. It's full of information. It's full of empathy and compassion and truth and statistics and people's opinions and a lot of love and warmth and compassion. And there are 70 pages devoted just to the Palestinian-Israeli situation back as it was in leading up to 2003 when he wrote this book. It's a marvelous book. I would recommend you all work in a library, you have access, and I know you're all interested in education and knowledge, and so I would highly recommend this book. And it will give you perhaps some
30 seconds.
Mary Federer.
Yeah. Can I let the next person go? I'm gonna go get a drink, Yeah.
Candace.
I'm just gonna speak briefly. I'm not much of a public speaker. I'm a shy person, but it seems to me that this whole debacle is a First Amendment speech right issue, that anyone should be able to come to a library and speak as they wish without retribution. And that's what BNP has suffered. Retribution for a different point of view than some other folks. And, basically we should have freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, all of those things. I mean, in the past few weeks, we've seen Claudine Gay, head of the Harvard College, get sacked because she committed plagiarism, not because they were looking for something. She may have committed plagiarism, but that wasn't the reason she was dismissed. It was her views on Palestine and freedom of speech on campus. Same with Elizabeth McGill. They were fired because of that. I also would just like to mention that I'm a union activist, and we had you've got a ton of unions that are backing a ceasefire in Gaza, tons of them. So the majority of Americans are for that. So if the majority is for that, that's called democracy. And in a democratic society, I believe we should be able to speak freely about these issues.
Mary, are you ready?
I think so.
I'll read this article from Webster in a minute. But my name's Mary Finneran, and I wrote to the board a while ago about my experience at the December 5th meeting. I made a sign from John the Apostle, a quote from him that said, "Love one another." And I held up the sign, and then I set it on a table so that people could see it as they walked into the room. A woman came over and folded it up. I went over, I unfolded it and walked away. She threw it on the floor, basically throwing love on the floor. I went over, I picked it up. She threw it on the other side of the table, and I went and picked it up again. I later held it up for just so I could say, we have to stop the hate. We have to stop the hate across the board. But I've been reading about Palestine for 4 decades, and a lot of stuff going on. This letter, the article that Leslie gave me, is about what was happening in Palestine in 1994. Shortly after Yasser Arafat and Jimmy Carter signed the peace accord. So this is from 1994. So it was an event that happened then. Following the mass murder of more than 50 Arabs at prayer, your front page headline highlights the emotional pain of Israeli Jews rather than the reactions of Arab victims. Massacre leaves Israelis shamed, sad, and scared of what's ahead. They should have been shamed and scared, and I sympathize. February 27. I write not as an enemy of Israel, but as an American Jew who during the many years I lived in Israel worked as the audio-visual director of the Yad Vashem Holocaust Memorial in Jerusalem. It is precisely because of this background and my knowledge of the history of Jewish suffering that I find the condemnations of the Hebron massacre by American Jewish organizations hollow in the extreme. I'm going to skip to the last paragraph. There are many of us in only a complete acceptance by Israel and American Jewish community of the Palestinian people's right to full self-determination will salvage the peace process and the hope that glimmered on the White House lawn last September 13th, and that would have been 1993. Thank you.
David?
We are in very difficult times. And I think everyone in this room would agree with that. And what we need in very difficult times is light and truth, communication. But what we're seeing is not that. Our media is constantly censoring, suppressing. But I have always felt at home in a library, and that's why I come to your library. But now, I don't feel that hope, because libraries have always been the place to stand up against oppression, against censorship. So what we are asking is to at least let us be here. Our presence is a good presence. You can sense that. I know that you know that in your heart. So I'd like you all to really consider this. And at least for me, I'd like to see y'all restore my belief in what libraries are and what they're doing in a time of difficulty. And that is this time. And I want to thank you all for your time. And I would like to thank you all for giving us more time and continued access Thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ziad. I'm a Palestinian. I'm also a member of the LGBT community, and I'm one of the lead organizers of the Ceasefire Coalition, and also a national community organizer in the Palestine movement. When I first came to this convo, I kind of believed that the Bethlehem Public Library, what Trudy and Joe Lombard always pushed, that BNP Library is on the forefront of being stalwarts of uncomfortable conversations and really pro-Palestine and pro-BDS. I hope the members of the board did not came under Zionist pressure and have their tails between their legs and cave into it. I hope that folks would be willing to mend with the Muslim community, because the Muslim community has full support of what BNP is doing. The entire Muslim community in the capital region. I'll try to talk to the Ceasefire Coalition and the Muslim community and see if maybe we could get more speakers here. Maybe different authors. See if we could work on something, because I really want to educate folks about the right to boycott. Okay, there is an entire situation where, unfortunately, Governor Cuomo decided to make the right to boycott illegal. Libraries across the country is on the forefront of promoting and supporting Palestinians having the right to push for an anti-apartheid movement for the boycott, divestment, and sanctions. So I would love for the Bethlehem Public Library put out a ceasefire coalition, put out a ceasefire resolution, call for boycotts, and call for a conversation about boycotts. I think that'll be really imperative, really nice to see libraries put up the forefront of free speech. This conversation, Amico was here, would not have happened in Clifton Park, the library, right? Maybe it would happen in Albany, but not in Clifton Park. I left. I'm no longer in Sarasota County. I moved down to Albany County. So I'm down. So now I'm in Albany.
30 seconds.
So I just would like to see about us educating the board and educating folks about boycotts and that movement. And I think maybe we could do that, because I don't want to, thinking the Bethlehem Public Library is not on the side of Palestine and like have to organize stuff. So I just really would like to see if, we put together on the events.
Hendrik?
So I'm sure everyone here has seen some of the pictures and videos, the awful and brutal stuff going on across the other side of the world. And I don't know if you guys see it anymore or how very up to date with it on social media you keep yourselves. I see it every day. It really is taking a toll, because it seems like it's never ending this violence. Okay, I'm Jewish, born and raised, bar mitzvahed. Wasn't raised to be a Zionist, but I grew up around along with them, and I used to be in support of Israel and Palestine getting along. Now, the way we're seeing this genocide play out, there is no them getting along, okay? The only way that Jewish people will be safe and peaceful is if Palestinians are also safe and peaceful. We need a ceasefire, we need to end apartheid, we need a Palestinian state. And the biggest thing you guys can do now, your role here, is for a ceasefire resolution. I greatly encourage you to do that, and always encourage towards peace. And just, please, can we end this horrible, horrible violence? Do everything we can, organize, boycott. Please, let's not give up. All right, thank you for letting me speak. Ceasefire now.
That's it. Anyone else would like to speak? Okay, thank you all. Let's go on to the agenda. We have a review of previous meeting minutes on page 15. There's a couple, these two sets of minutes. So let's do the first one, which is the Monday, January 8th set in our packet. Any amendments or modifications to the January 8th minutes?
So can I ask a question? So we're re-reviewing this, right? Because there's been a modification. Wasn't this accepted before? Oh, no, this is, okay, hang on. Oh, that's right, we had two meetings. Right.
Yeah, there's a special board meeting,
Special board
but we don't
Yeah.
do
Yeah,
meeting minutes at this time.
okay, I'll take resolution on.
So I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from the Monday, January 8th board meeting.
Second, have a great night.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I'm trying to catch up. Weren't there two sets of minutes posted on the,
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're doing January 8th first, and then we'll do January 25th.
okay, which is the one that was revised? There's a clause there's something in italics.
The page 4.
Hold on.
I should have marked it, sorry.
Oh, the italics, that was a discussion of a revision from the December minutes.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was part of the packet, but that's not what's on the agenda now.
No, we're going through the January 8th minutes.
We
Right,
talked about the
Right.
revision to the December minutes at the January minutes.
okay,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the January meeting.
Yep.
Right. So on page 4, there was a sentence upon further discussion of the board in italics,
okay.
in this minute package.
And so my question was, did that come off the tape? Was that amendment, was that from the discussion on the tape?
At the December meeting?
Yeah, so I'm wondering where, so in January 8th, this, I'm trying to just remember back to the meeting.
Yeah.
This phraseology was introduced in January. Or was it in December?
If you look at the next thing on a motion by you and second by Sarah, the
Yeah.
board unanimously approved minutes as amended. with the
Right.
phrase upon for discussion of the board from the Monday, December 11th.
Right, so I'm just curious that was that phrase used in December at all, or we amended it in January? Do you understand what I'm saying?
I got what you're saying. I'm just gonna make sure I get what you're
Yeah,
saying.
yeah.
So you're saying, so yes, it was the discussion about the amendment of the minutes took place at the January board meeting.
Right.
But the discussion originally happened.
Oh, no, I got
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So this phraseology was introduced in January.
No, I believe that phraseology was spoken in December
That's what I was trying to figure out.
Yeah, it's on the tape.
and we
Clarified.
clarified the minutes.
Got it. That's what I'm trying to say is like, when was this first introduced into the minutes? I'm sorry if I've been kind of clumsy in saying that. So it was spoken in December,
Spoken in December.
but the minutes did not necessarily reflect
Reflect
that. So we added it in January.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted to know.
Okay,
Yes, we reviewed the tape on that.
yeah.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so there's a motion, second, any further discussion on the minutes of January 8th? Okay, all those in favor, signify by raising your hand. In opposition, that motion carries. Moving to the next set of minutes, which is January. Special board meeting of January 25th. Is there any amendments or questions on?
Yes, I did on page 12.
Okay.
So this is going to be very similar to what we just discussed.
Okay.
It's just that I was attributed as saying something about the telescoping seating and stage, and I don't believe it was me.
It was me.
Said that.
Sarah.
Yeah, and I just reviewed the tape on that too, Michelle. You had asked about storage space for the seating. if we
Okay.
were to have, So
Right.
I will make that. in the
Okay,
final
great.
version.
Great. Thanks, Kristen.
And then on page 14,
Mhm.
something attributed to Lisa, and it was me. who said that. Take a breath.
Where was that?
Well, it's on page 14. I
Okay.
think. Scroll down.
On the paragraph Lisa
Yeah.
said that she felt the.
It's,
Was just take a deep breath.
That was, yeah, that's me.
And get some data.
No, like in the middle there, else at the very end, yeah.
Right there?
Sorry, I can't.
deep breath part.
Yes.
Best
That
I
was
can do,
Laura.
right there. Best I can do.
Gotcha. Changes will be made, fine.
Okay. Any other amendments or changes on the meeting minutes? Any discussion on this set of meeting minutes? Okay, I'll ask for motion this meeting is set.
So moved.
Second,
As soon as I saw your hand go up.
Yeah.
Charmaine and Michelle,
Yeah.
motion second. All those in favor, signify by raising their hand. See no opposition, this motion passes. Okay, so the meeting minutes are done today. Moving on to financial report, page 16 through 24.
So, just a quick, review of activity through, actually it's through January. Interest income is more than $91,000, far exceeding the budgeted amount, and reflects, obviously the positive change in the interest environment. We also received a $10,000 donation, from the Standish Family Fund, and $1,000 from the Storches, as well as $1,000 from the Friends of the Library. Expenses are tracking at about 3% under budget, which is very similar to last year at this time. I won't make any comments about the draft budget right now. We'll wait till.
Make sure it comes up. Okay.
Yeah. And I don't know if you want to scroll through and look at some of the reports, if anybody has any questions about anything that's reflected there.
Was there anything extraordinary in the warrant? I didn't see anything different, but is there anything?
No, I don't think we had a large number of checks issued due to timing and year end and things
Right.
like that, but we're, pretty well caught up now.
Okay.
Just for the board's information, I had asked Shari about the Bethlehem Chamber of Commerce amount there, and it was for ad in a publication. Okay.
Okay, any discussion or further questions on the financial report? Take a motion then. Any motion on the financial report?
Make a motion to accept the financial report.
Okay, Caroline and Michelle. Okay, all those in favor, signify by raise your hand, saying aye. Seeing no opposition, that motion is carried. Okay, personnel report, page 25.
I am delighted to report for the second month in a row, as is Tracy, that there's no actions requested. I don't have any, I'm not seeking to fill any positions, so we're doing well. I think we talk so often about when we have a lot of positions that have been open. I think it's noteworthy, it's hard to remember in absentia, but right now we don't have positions open, so that's nice.
You do not need a motion.
You can just note it. I don't need any actions. There's nothing to do.
Okay, great. Any questions on the non-actions? Okay, moving on to director's report.
All right, so first, I just want to mention, because the maintenance staff really wanted me to hit home just the massive change that the resurfacing of the plaza has taken. I know some people were unhappy with the aesthetics as far as the bricks are concerned, but really this winter, we have not had to close or modify the opening of the library at all. We've had plenty of days that we're porpoising at or near freezing. That it's a lot easier for them to clear. They're just, there's a lot of smiles in the maintenance office, both from the part-time staff and the full-time staff. So unmitigated success as far as that's concerned. I was, fearing a little bit that we would make the major change and it wouldn't have this positive impact that we were hoping it would, but it has exceeded the expectations that we had. It's a lot easier to get close to that. It seems silly to talk about asphalt, but it's been a major service change for us. No longer do we have folks sneaking down the side of the concrete. It seems to freeze no faster or any different than the concrete parts of the walk, unlike the bricks, which froze at a significantly different rate and time than the cement. So anyway, we're pleased with that.
Well, Jeff, I was just gonna point out that
Yeah.
it's nice to hear that we did something in response to information from the public. And that, you know, we're hearing all good things about that. So it's nice to hear good news.
Yeah, right. I mean, you
Yeah.
know, there's a lot of good news. So
Yeah.
that's just one. And, you know, usually when we're talking about the building, 50 years old, we're talking about HVAC and asbestos and all of these things. Here's the thing. Relatively, I mean, there's a lot of work, but a relatively simple change has made a big impact on our
Right.
our ability to serve the public. So that's nice.
Great.
Let me see, just a little bit. We had the end of the semester and the Regents exams at the high school. Felt a little bit 2018 in here with some kids actually studying. It looked like a little bit like what we think that studying looks like in the library. So that was fun for people. And just reiterate that the studio maker space, which is next door, we're two of the librarians have taken the 3D training, so they'll be ready to train the public, and we're going to work on making that room more available. We had been doing all the training out of the information technology department. We're going to be sending that back to the public services department where it belongs. So that's good. And then just a lot of programs. I'm never quite sure how many programs I should put in here, but I think it's important to know the program highlights. I'm not going to run through them all here. I do like to hit on the interns. They're in the report, both the BC, the high school intern program, which has been going on for years, continues. We have 2 interns this semester, and just mention the team volunteers and some of the other volunteers who are here in the library. And as we work to expand that program and make more volunteer opportunities available, I know it's important to the board, so I just want to highlight that. Lots of programs. One of the things that is noted to me is, we try to focus. We have a community-wide focus for our programs. It is hard to deny these attendance numbers for these children's story times. So these are heavily in demand. When we're talking like moving music, we did 7 sessions in the month, and each of them are getting from 60 to 70 people at the event. That is our bread and butter. And when I focus on children's programming and services to children, it's not all that we do here, obviously, but it is a very much needed and obviously something that's in demand in the community. So I just like to drop those numbers in there. Some good programs on sustainability, which, as we know, is one of our long-range plan goals here. So continued with those programs, and of course, lots of things that are tying into astronomy this year with the upcoming eclipse. So just that program series continues to be popular. Let me roll down. We do have, we'll be returning to the pit. I don't know how many folks remember when we used to go to the middle school. We'd go to the pit down there most weeks and take our game systems down there. We're going to be partnering with them again, and we'll be returning to them for the spring semester, and we'll see how that goes. Winter Carnival went well. We had 154 people attend hang out with Rachel down at the Elmeth Park. So that's always a good time. Circulation, just hit on this a little bit about Hoopla. It was our biggest single Hoopla month, which is the ebook and audiobook service that we have where people don't have to wait. Libby has the much bigger collection. Hoopla has a smaller collection, but it's always available. Since we introduced the program in April of 2020. So that was the middle of the pandemic or the beginning of the pandemic. We needed another service to help people find books. We're busier than that last month, which I find kind of interesting because that was a huge spike in ebook use. And I just need to hit, thanks to Phil for getting the telecoils, the hearing loops installed at the desks. Instantly, as soon as we did them and we announced them out to the public, people said, when are you going to loop the rooms? So that is a much bigger installation. I was pleased to be able to offer this at the desk because it was a quick, and I'm not going to say simple because it wasn't, but it was a relatively quick install. And so I was pleased to be able to offer that at the service points at the desk. And then we'll be talking about the UHLS Equity Challenge. Just a quick mention here that Sarah, who's one of our librarians, is on the committee. She did a good presentation to the Directors Association, and we'll be talking about that in a little while.
So I just had a question about the hearing loop. So is that a device that you can check out from the front desk? No.
No. So yeah. Thank you for the question. It's like a microphone just like this at the service desks, and they're it has a little small field on the other side of there's a coil that interacts with the telecoil on many hearing aids, just like the T-coil, just like a phone. So it allows people to stand in front of the desk.
Just so they can have a better conversation with the information.
You got it, and it knocks down a lot of noise. We wanted to get some of them installed, see what the demand was, and then I think a lot of libraries are installing them in rooms just like this. Now we have a hearing system in this room that is based on infrared, and it has never really worked right. This gentleman who we worked with to install this system is like, really, rooms like this need to be looped so they can have so people can just help improve hearing in the room. We have that all the time where I think people, because it's passive, they don't need to come to us and ask for a special device that hooks up or have headphones. It just interacts with the cochlear implant or the hearing aid that people already have. So I think it's definitely, Suzanne from Ashland McGraw knows this. It's a thing that will be integrated into any building project, but sort of I'm trapped a little bit in this question of, here we are facing down a building project. Do we do a major installation like that today? Do we hope and wait for that to be installed in a renovation? Is something we could do now, but the expense is obviously going to be more than what we did just to install the small systems at the desk. We're right there right now. We're experimenting with how they work, and we're going to get more comfortable with them, and I'll have a different recommendation for you about that as we move forward.
2 points. I think, kind of dovetailing what you said earlier, our installation of those came as a direct result of a patron who spoke at one of our meetings.
So yes, I'm going to say yes, our interaction with her, and but we had been having conversations for a long time about this, and it was something, because the cost of the installation was within my level, it was something that we could do quickly and test and see as we become more comfortable with technology. I wanted to get something in the building. So,
because I think that some of those comments came at one of our busier meetings and may have been overshadowed by other issues. Absolutely. So I just want to point that out. And then a second question, the children's library, I think, is very busy. And I've received a question from a few people. There is a children's book right now that is very popular, called Big.
Okay.
And I saw a sign in the children's library about how to that you can sign up for, I believe, to reserve it. And my question is when we have the very good problem of a children's book that is popular and many children or parents, as the case may be, want to check it out, how do we usually deal with that?
We'll buy more based on the reservation. So we try to be perfect. We try to guess what people want ahead of time. We are absolutely not perfect. And one of the ways that we judge how many of a particular title we need is based on the number of reservations, and we just have a ratio of hold to copy ratio.
So I guess if parents are looking to get this book for their children,
put a reservation in. Yeah, definitely do that, because otherwise, if you a lot of people will say, "Oh, I'll just wait till it shows up." And if it's not a popular book like that, you are going to be waiting for a very long time. So the more holds we get, the more copies we'll get, the faster that book will come around.
Thank you.
I had a couple of things. You may not know the answer to this question, but when I was on the school board, I toured the pit. Has it been renovated? Have you been down there?
I can answer that question. No.
No.
Oh, okay. Okay. That I just was wondering, because I thought it was on one of the bonds, but I'm like, okay, I remember that.
It's aptly named.
Okay, got it. The other one is library related. I saw in the children's programming sensory story time is listed, and I can kind of imagine what that is, but can you tell us what it is?
Sure, and I'm not the expert, but I can get you the full and complete answer. But generally speaking, we do sensory story time, tone down the music, keep the lights at a moderate level, and it's a lot less loud clapping, just a little bit toned down. Chris? Am I doing a good job?
More like hands-on activities, manipulative, that kind of stuff. So. And
thank you.
Intended for children who have those sensitivities?
Intended for anybody at all is welcome. And that's the thing. So it's a integrated story time with that as a focus, just a sensory.
Thank you.
Yeah, that.
comment and a question. So I was really happy to see the 3D printer. No, that was feedback I'd heard a long time ago
Yep.
about the desire. We want to learn how to do this. There's no one, we need someone to help us. So I was really happy to see that. And then a question. It might have occurred too late to be in your report, but I was just wondering how the virtual webinar, and I might get the title wrong, on having difficult conversations. I really just curious.
Right, so we had
that went.
59 people show up and then 29 of them actually show up to the program, but that's seems normal-ish. So that's, I think the program went well for the folks that were able to attend and do that virtually. And, towards that end, I have a meeting set up, and I just give full thanks to David Van Leeuwen, who's the town supervisor. We're gonna have a conversation on Wednesday, bringing some folks from the Jewish community together and the imam from the local mosque, and just begin to have our conversations about how we might frame a program that would promote healing in the community, which I think is really, really important and needed at this point. But obviously, clearly, it's a super sensitive topic, and we need to make sure that we're bringing a lot of people together and making sure that we're doing it the right way.
It was my understanding on that program, Diane Goodman and I are colleagues and we went to grad school. That there wasn't a lot of time for people to interact with it, because I think it was a 1-hour program.
Okay.
And so as we move forward with either with the town hall, be interesting to have the types of program where people can try on new behaviors, get feedback. It was a great first step, I think. I didn't know the content, I didn't attend, but the other thing to way down the road is the possibility to train. We call it training of trainers, to train staff or a series of town volunteers to become facilitators. And I know UMass Amherst is a major academic center for what they call intergroup dialogue for social justice. So, great, plug that in.
Thank you.
Several steps along a potential process.
And I think that's exactly the thing I want to hit home, that this is going to be, we're dipping our toe and we're going to continue to move forward and exploring lots of channels. So it's not a program that we're working towards, it's lots of programs. Hit some number stuff, not too, you've got so much numbers in this meeting. We have an annual report to review. So numbers look good. Circulation continues to be up. Door counting continues to be up. Those are all good. Some weird drop in wireless use. I have no idea. That's interesting to me, but I think we're doing well. Get this continued return to circulation. I am still waiting for my 20,000 month back for the door count. Like, we're gonna get there. Certainly by July, I can see we're gonna get there, but I've been waiting post-pandemic to get my 20,000 month back. So that's where we're going right now.
Great. Other questions for Jeff? Okay, thank you. We'll go to the UHLS report.
Once again, the meeting is Wednesday instead of the meeting is Wednesday, but I did review one of the things that came up was the advocacy day, which was last week, and you guys went, right?
Did.
So by all reports, I think it was well received. The staffing issues we've had have now hit UHLS. They're having some staffing issues. Most notably, their long-term IT guru is going to be retiring, so they're I think they've come up with a good solution for it. But that really has impact on all the libraries because they fall into him. So, but other than that, there's not a lot going on.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. I enjoy, as I always do, the Advocacy Day, and that staff member at Upper Hudson is a major loss. So even we have a IT department here. Staff at Upper Hudson work with us when we get a larger, thornier problem. So any major change like that for someone who's been there so long, it's a nervous making time. So.
Okay, any questions for Lisa on the UHLS report? Okay, moving on to new business. So the first item is the 2024 draft budget. It's page 32, 33 in your packet. Want to take us through it?
Sure. So we
put together a budget and been able to, stay, a little bit under the cap, which was a goal. The New York State cap limit is almost 4.6 million, and our total levy, I'm projecting in this budget to be 4.587 million. So we have about $7,000 left over to play with, or just to leave on the table. A couple of things that I'll point out. Maybe looking at income first. I'm budgeting $90,000 for interest income. In research that I've done, it looks like interest rates are going to remain pretty steady throughout 2024. Of course, we don't know what's going to happen in 2025. So I'm not going to budget at the level that I know we're going to realize in 2024, which right now we're at 127,000. No, I'm sorry. That's I'm looking at the prior year. Right now we're at about 82,000, and I think we're going to be close to 160,000 at the end of the year. So I don't want to budget that much. That makes me nervous. I'm trying to be a little conservative. However, I do want to be able to realize some of the advantages of interest rates and come up with a reasonable estimate. I mean, it's a little bit of a throw a dart at a dartboard, but I think it's reasonable. The other thing that I'll point out, total salaries and benefits are increasing by just a little over 200,000, which represents a 5.87% increase, which it makes sense. It's reasonable. We know that per the contract, the increase in wages was going to be 3.5%. That plus step increases pushes it to closer to 5%. And then there's a few other things in there that add to the increase. Retirement is going up, and health insurance, which is also, a difficult number to project, but we've done a pretty good job of it over the past few years. I think we've come in pretty close to what our budget was. Other than that, total library materials are remaining stable. A couple of things to point out under operations. We are bumping up professional services a bit to 40,000 from a budget this current year of 30,000. That's, thinking about, all of the things that we're trying to manage right now in terms of, the building project and, legal issues that come up around that. So we want to make sure we have enough available for, whatever we might need. Special programs, I'll make a mention about that. At the beginning of this year, we are reclassifying how we're reflecting contributions from Friends of the Library. We're showing it under revenue as a gross number, and then showing the gross expenses for special programs under special programs. The net effect of the budget is 0. So you'll see that special programs, while it looks like it's increasing by $7,000, that's because I took out the contributions that we anticipate receiving from the Friends, which used to be credited against those expenses. Now, if you go to the income line, you'll see an income line for $7,000 for the Friends. So the net effect is 0. It's just a cleaner way to reflect income and expense. That's all. I think that's about all I have to point out that is noteworthy to mention. I don't know if anybody has any specific questions, or I will say that the total levy will be increasing by 4.2%. Now that's the 2.8%, which is the cap increase, plus what we left on the table last year. We're able to utilize those funds, so the increase is actually reflected as, there's 2 parts to it. It's the 2.8% of the cap increase, and then the funding that was left from that was unused last year that we're rolling into this year's budget. So the total increase for the levy is 4.2%.
And just also to say the finance committee reviewed the budget.
Yes,
You know,
right. We had a meeting with the finance committee and we discussed all of this and, you know, had some good conversations about it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we all agreed that it was a reasoned and well thought out approach with an appropriate cushion. So thank you, Sherry.
So just from an operations standpoint, you don't need to see the draft budget for the first time and vote on it tonight. Sometimes we find ourselves in that situation, but we have until March 20th to report. I mean, we won't get close to that date, but we have till that date to send our information to the school district so that they can meet their reporting timelines and make sure that it gets accepted. That the notice gets voted on by the school board and put out for public notice to make sure it gets on the vote. So our March 11th board meeting is in plenty of time to.
So this is like the first read.
Yeah.
And then we can, you know, have a final quick discussion about it next month and vote on it. And it gives us a little bit more time to think about anything that we might.
Can I say a couple on some of the smaller ones on the professional services? I know that you had mentioned about just a bump up there. And we'll talk about that in terms of the policy committee that we are sending some of the policies out for legal review. So that's will be an example, and we'll cover that in more detail. I appreciate you explaining this for programs because I was trying to make sense of that myself. And then the furniture and equipment, I know that will be that's line number
460.
460. That does not cover the furniture and equipment that we'll be anticipating that will be part of the bond project. That's been built into the bond itself. I just wanted to make that distinguish.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, this is just annual, you know, whatever, this is to me, whatever annual
The
needs
stuff.
we have for, you know.
Current needs.
Chairs,
Yeah.
replace carpet in one room or something.
Yeah, it ends up being frequently buildings and grounds pieces of
Sure.
equipment. So that are big enough to be there, but not so huge as their capital.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Right.
So
Well, I realize people might see that and just say, well, what about all the new things? And that's built into the building projects budget separately.
Right,
Great, thank you.
just as an example, the hearing loop equipment
right,
got put into equipment.
yes.
So that's the kind of
Yeah,
things that
that's a good.
when we purchase something to be used, not for circulation purposes, but to be used in the library, whether it's a table or something like that.
So one last, it's not really a question, just a clarification. So I know the board adopts a budget in the March meeting. It gets shipped off to the district. So notifications can happen. Do we have to have a public hearing, what they call it, public hearing of the budget afterwards?
The May meeting, we do a review right here, but sort of before the meeting. And we used to schedule them as two separate meetings, but now we do that and that lasts as long as it needs to. And then when it ends, we roll right into the.
Sure. So that is considered like we call it like the public hearing.
You got it.
It's basically a public presentation of a budget that's already been adopted
Right.
by the trustees. So I just want to clarify that too for someone who may not have gone through it yet.
And you'll have that in hand in the May, June footnotes.
Great.
Folks will have that all in that printed out and available to them both online and mailed.
Thank you.
So I had to ask about staffing perspective in terms of budget for next year in regard. Any big swings that you're predicting or budgeting?
There are no new positions budgeted in this budget. Any, you know, we have a few part-time clerk openings that's budgeted in case we fill them, but there are no new positions budgeted.
And Sherry applies our long-running average turnover rate, but it explained at the finance committee, not to the maintenance staff uses a different turnover rate for them because the department is so small compared to the other two.
And there's
groups
very
of
little
folks. There's
turnover.
very little turnover in maintenance. So,
But that turnover allowance has proved to hold steady. I mean, I actually, you know, do a little bit of an analysis to see what we've done in the past years. You know, what our actual salary expenses were in comparison to the budget. And I can see that, you know, there's savings and most of that is represented by turnover. And then I use a conservative estimate of 3.5%. It's really more than that, but I don't want to, you know, I want to be conservative. And that's, you know, that's held pretty true to the last few budgets that we've done. It's.
yeah, we're in the long range plan. There's another position that we have talked about. I am not proposing that we fill it this year, given the large increase in COLA that we had last year and the upcoming building project. I think that just, I'm still interested in outreach coordinator, but
Yeah.
I'm willing to sit on that for a little bit.
Okay, any other questions at this point? I would urge all people to engage Sherry and all of us and other questions if we have it. I'm ready to vote on what.
Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you. The next order of business is the Capital Projects Fund Resolution, page 34. So we need a motion.
So moved.
Second,
I'll second.
okay. Any discussion on this motion? It's moving 750,000 or not to exceed 750,000. No, if all those in favor, please raise your hand. See no opposition, that motion carried. Annual report for the public libraries.
Okay, give me a second. So I didn't include this in
Right.
the massive board packet, but it is available to everybody. I'm gonna share this out. I guess we'll share this out.
Let's explain the year.
Yeah, so
Okay.
Get my share done first. My brain
Sure.
can only do one thing at a time.
Okay.
So we're getting there. Okay, so here we go.
Yeah.
So this is the annual report for public libraries for 2023. Strangely, because the state does not adhere to the Bethlehem Public Library's annual year, this is the year that ended June 30th, 2023. We reported in the beginning of 2024. So it's about 6 months out of date for us. We're living in the past when we collect these numbers, but it doesn't really matter because every year it's about 6 months out of phase of wherever we are currently. And this is a required report by the library for every public library, every chartered public library in New York State, and system has to report in this enormous packet. And I have my thoughts on their categories and the way they look at stuff. Some of these numbers are reported from the New York State Library for the Division of Library Development. There's a small subsection of these that are then reported on to the federal government, into the Institute of Museum and Library Services, where they are looking at 100-year-long trends. They have a smaller subset of numbers. New York State has a bigger subset of numbers and what they're looking for. In any case, this has to be voted on by you. It has to be officially approved. I'm not going to run through this line by line, but I am happy to talk about questions. Much of these numbers, if you look at the way we report, that monthly report that you get, that maybe seems like a lot of numbers. Many of those numbers dump straight from there right into this, so we don't have to recollect. Where that doesn't happen is on the program numbers, where every year Chris has to go back in and recut and reslice all the programs because the statistical categories change with little notice. And so we hack and slash those things in a bunch of different ways. But in any case, I didn't want to include this thing, 80 pages of this thing in the middle of the packet, but it is here. I sent it to everybody for you to review. I'll entertain any questions on it.
Just a question. So it's for June, but are they asking for current Board of Trustees? Because I was not a trustee.
Correct. So you're right.
I did look at this.
I appreciate that. It is that is my generic statement. That is incorrect. So there are actually a couple things. Most of the things in this report are the year ending June 30th, 2023. Board members are as of when it opens that day. So it's literally, it would be in the past a little bit now, but that day. And then some program categories, the summer reading program in particular, is a calendar year report. So we keep these numbers in different packets and in different ways so that we can report them. Because for lots of libraries that have a school district fiscal year, the summer reading would go a little bit over into 2 years, not really, but that's why we report them on a calendar year basis. Listen, I have thoughts. But this is a thing we have to do. That's my explanation to lots of staff people who have to help me collect all these numbers. This is a thing that we're required to do. All the libraries have to do it. We can commiserate about it collectively, but it's a thing that needs to get done. And so thanks to all the folks many of them who are in this room who really worked hard and fast to get me these numbers so that I could have it here. So we're not doing like an ex post facto vote, which has happened sometimes depending on when the window opens up, when the instrument gets opened to us. Sometimes our board meetings are super early and the report can't get done in time, so we have to approve it in the March meeting. But this works how it's supposed to be working this year. So.
And when's it due?
It's due on the 16th.
Of February?
Of February,
Okay.
to the system where it then gets reviewed by the staff at Upper Hudson, who are the experts of looking at so many of these. They'll come back with any modifications and changes or explanations, and then it will get submitted onto the state from there. Will there be undoubtedly more questions, and then finally they finalize at some point during the summer. Off they go.
I had a couple things. Two things I just want to affirm and celebrate. According to the report, it's been the library has been registered for 110 years.
Yes.
Yes. So that's lovely. Which is different than being founded, which I guess is a little bit earlier. But it's been a registered library for 110 years, and that there were 600 books added. I think even maybe to the adult collection, but so that. That caught my eyes.
Yes.
That's something to celebrate. And then there were two things just down the road to think about. One was about services for visually impaired people. I wasn't exactly sure what a Braille display was, but I noticed that you don't have one apparently.
We don't. So it's not that I wouldn't.
Right. But
it's basically like it's a refreshable display that would just go line by line through a computer screen, kind of like the screen readers do, which we do have here. We have the audio screen readers. This allows folks to read those with Braille. The thing about those displays, and I'm not the expert of them, but my impression is that the cost of the technology of those things has come down immensely, and so the need for them to be in the libraries is less than it used to be in the past, but that doesn't mean we could have them.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I just said that like down the road in terms of accessibility and the mission statement and long range plan, just something to be aware of. I noticed that we didn't have it. I didn't know enough about it. And then adult literacy programs.
Yes.
So I can tell you it's 3.64, but you don't have to look it up. Okay. But I wasn't sure. I don't think we have any.
We do. So we looked at
dropped or something.
So some libraries are more partnered with like literacy volunteers, more like directly partnered. We've hosted them here in the past lots, and then they decided not to come here based on the use and the interest of people and the availability of the rooms that we can't guarantee. Some libraries can just make a room available all the time for that purpose, and we have our study rooms only, and so we don't have as many rooms on that. So there's just some practical needs for that. But what falls into a literacy program by the state, I'm gonna throw to Chris. She sent me an email earlier, but in any case, go ahead, Chris.
So it's providing instructions on the library and its resources. So it would include things like resume writing, computer skills, things like using a catalog.
Okay.
So the state definition of adult literacy, there's a little bit of some overlap with the digital literacy as well sometimes in some of those cases. So some of the programs that we had, the Cypress Resume Workshop, discovering your roots with ancestry. We had numerous sessions on Libby, streaming videos, the library's website, Seeking Truth in a Fake News World, the Library of Things. So those all kind of fall under digital literacy.
Great. See, I misinterpreted that. I thought it meant like non-English speakers or English as a new language speakers. And so that's why maybe I got the trip up. I was wondering, like, do we ever do something like that?
There is some of that because it has like the citizenship preparation, it falls under that. But they also have a category for English as second and other languages. So there's a whole nother category for that too.
Got it. Thank you.
These are, like Jeff said, they do it by calendar year. And they do look at it different ways. So there is some overlap in all of those.
So it's like basically adult skill building across a lot of genres.
Correct.
Got it. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Okay, I'll take a motion to approve the annual report.
So moved.
Second,
Oh, let's got it.
Thanks, Sarah and Lisa. Any discussion, all right, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand or saying aye. Saying no opposition, that motion carries. You have an annual report you can send.
I am happy to have that.
So exciting.
It is very exciting.
Big thing.
If I do this, and I flip back over here.
Neither agree nor disagree.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think that at the end. your
Well,
answer.
listen, I have been through this in the years where I was grouchier at the annual report, and you know what? It's not going to change anything. I can be grouchy, or I can just do it. I just do it, right? And I'll report to you. A perfect segue into our next thing. So our Kristen provided annual report that she designed for us. So also one of the state library standards for public libraries is that we have a board approved report to the community annually that talks about our working towards our goals as a library. And so Kristen has produced this infographic, which actually we sent out over Facebook because, you know, whatever, but it's here for you today for official approval, just breaking out some of the statistics and use of the library more on a year that's current for folks. So
this is
People sharing it on Facebook
fantastic.
yeah.
and not us.
Yeah.
The general public.
Sharing to each other.
So I just want a couple questions.
Sure.
This is the 2023 calendar year.
Yes.
Okay. And then I just want to point out that we have 28,631 people in our school district, and we have 21,000 card holders.
Yeah.
Which is phenomenal. So.
And we actually read them, we read card holders pretty aggressively,
I know.
so there's some other libraries, so that's real users, you know, people who try to define a real user.
That's great.
I love that it points out very graphically that the cost of the library is people, not
Right.
books, which
Right.
people do not understand.
No, I mean, I think I have that conversation continuously with folks when they're like, oh, this is how much you're spending on materials. I'm like, it's the folks that are expensive. And that's, but it's also the folks that provide all the services.
Right.
Without them, it's just a big pile of books.
Well, I just want to say thanks to Kristen. I think she did a really great job. And even before I was ever on the board, this was always my favorite thing to sit down and read all of the sections. So it looks wonderful. Thank you.
We have to ask like 65 more questions so we can get to 60.
That's right.
It's driving me crazy a little.
Real. And just so at each of your desks, there's a little wallet card for you, and this is just a super small version of some of the same statistics. And when you go out and meet with other trustees, if you go to NILA or if you're at Upper Hudson, many of them, these are the questions they're going to ask you. This is how we compare libraries in size, in budget, in staff, in square footage. So we want to give you all those answers so you can have them quick and you don't have to wonder. There it is, right there. That's so you can make sure. Right. There you go.
Well, and I'm glad that you put hours on there.
Yeah.
Because a lot of libraries aren't back to their old hours.
The libraries, they're not going back to the old hours. That's the hours now. Like it's it's a little bit, I'm not saying anything negative about the other libraries. They're dealing with their own realities, but it was sort of a standard, not every library, because not every had the same budget, but 9 to 9 was really very normal for public libraries like us. And that is not the case anymore. So that's just, you know, we're still at 72 hours a week. That's us.
I would also say it is a joy that we have Sunday hours during the school year, which not all libraries do. In making weekend plans, it's have to remember it every weekend because it doesn't seem like it's right, but we do, and I think it helps out a lot of people.
And it is on a per hour basis our busiest day, not in total volume for the day, but in those short 5 hours, there's a lot of business. There's every one of those hours is busy.
We need to vote on this, okay?
Yeah,
I need a motion on the annual reports to the community, page 35.
So moved. Oh, go ahead.
I'll second.
Okay, Charmaine, Laura, all those in favor, please signify, raise your hand. Thank you. Seeing no opposition, that motion carries. Do you have another annual report? Done.
You want more? Oh,
Right
yeah,
on.
two,
Thank
checked
you.
off. Oh,
What else can we?
now we have to be a report to the school district. The ST3 report has to happen. We slice and dice our financial numbers like
Okay.
47 different ways before we get done with the year. So that's okay. They just all like a different view of them. Some on a cash basis, some on an accrual basis.
Okay, the equity challenge.
Yeah, so this
Page
is,
36.
it is best if we have board approval to pursue this. This is, sort of what the equity committee at Upper Hudson has morphed into is, they have a set of standards and benchmarks across multiple areas, domains, to work towards equity. Many of these things that I'm pleased to report that we are already in motion or are nearing completion on. So there's no cost for us to sign up, but Upper Hudson, we need to sign the memo of intention to participate in this, and I am seeking your approval to do so. Not just thank you.
I know when I was going through, I was a little disappointed the links didn't work.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what the 8 areas are.
Correct. I can we can do it live if you'd like to go look at them right now.
No, I don't need to go in depth.
Got
Could you just, are they easy things to say? Can you just tell us what the 8 areas are?
There's a lot. I mean, I did have to Google it. It took a little bit, but I had some time off recovering that I could just, but it's very in depth. I mean, it's not,
It is.
it's gonna take an effort, and I think that's good. I mean, it should be
Right.
something meaningful and challenging to, push the system towards a new level of equity. But yeah, it would be hard to go through, to remember all those areas.
You got it. I definitely do not have that, but we can bring it right
And
up.
I
That's the nice
really
part.
don't feel the need to get into the weeds with it.
I won't go any further than
Yeah,
this, but
okay.
so these are the domains. So board recruitment, learning and recruitment, collection, development and purchasing, facilities and equipment, marketing, organizational culture and leadership, outreach, programming and staff learning. So
Okay, great. And you said you're pleased to report that we're close.
on a lot of areas,
great.
we're doing a lot of, we have been doing a lot of good work. We've been reporting back about the collection and our diversity audit for the collection. A lot of those steps, this has to create a benchmark for libraries that are in all different places, right? So there's certainly things here that we haven't completed or haven't even begun yet. And it will take us some effort to get it done, but I think it's worthwhile.
I imagine that the building project covers most of facilities and equipment.
We better bake it in, right? That's the whole point. So that exact question about, think about a hearing loop in our rooms, like that would be points towards that. Is exactly like, can we bake this stuff in to always, we've been having conversations about
Right.
having an ADA accessibility audit just of the physical plan of the building. And we should absolutely make sure that as we are moving forward in a building project, that we keep that in mind the whole time. So
Was there a deadline? I can't remember, to complete it though, so would.
April,
there is,
yeah.
we go back.
Is it
December 2026.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we've got some time.
If you go under committees, and go under equity, it's under the January 25th, there's a link through that.
Okay.
And that's on the Upper Hudson under the committee section.
So do we need a motion to accept the equity challenge?
Just that you're giving me a motion to sign the memorandum of intent and have us participate in the equity challenge.
Caroline, Laura, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Hearing seen no opposition, that motion carries as well.
Thank you.
And we'll be talking about this more, during the.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's continuing work.
okay. April board meeting,
April board meeting, so it's not here, but
trying to move it a day or
I
something.
want to move it not a day, but the next week. So
week, okay.
I want to move it from the if as early as a board meeting can get. It's on calendar. It's on April 8th right now. That's the second Monday.
The eclipse day.
Right, don't want that. So I'm proposing we move it instead to tax day, the 15th, which is the following Monday. And one of the major reasons being is that I will be at a national conference the 3rd, 4th, and 5th. I could produce the packet.
No.
that time, but it's a lot of work, and I think I would rather be present. If you're paying to send me to a conference, I would rather be there and be present, and then be able to produce the packet the next week and have that.
I'm not available on the 15th right now. I mean, I can't miss the thing that I have going on. It's possible I could participate like in the beginning, but
Any other conflicts on the 15th? Okay, I'll take a motion to move the meeting.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Okay, Michelle, Charmaine, all those in favor, signify by raising your hand. Okay. Yeah.
I'll note now, the May meeting, I am due to be in New Hampshire for a conference. I could potentially do it virtually. Just
So thank you.
lay heads up.
Got it. I appreciate that. So while we're on that meeting, so the March meeting, next month's meeting, it's been the direction to try to get our board meetings into this room. There is large program going on that was scheduled to be in this room. It's with 2 Life. Do we want to move? We can move that program into the boardroom and move us in here. I'm trying not to, the librarians have been pretty gracious, and there's a program going on in the story room right now as we try to, or in the boardroom to try to accommodate us being in this larger room. Do we want to move that? Do we want to move the March board meeting into here? Even given that we have a large program that.
How large is the program, Jim? Like,
I think it's not, the sign up is not out yet. That's what we're having this discussion right now because we have an opportunity to change the sign up.
Okay.
But
It's my impression that we have fewer public participation at each meeting. And so, I mean, I think that will be fine in the boardroom.
I like this setup, but I think for March, we should go back to the board room, and then I think it's just area, it's lighter, and you never know how many people are gonna show up. So in general, when this space can be used for board meetings, I prefer it, but when there's a program that's already been in place, I think we just go back over.
okay, prospectively, it won't be a problem because we're just gonna be grabbing this room for this meeting going forward. No problem. It's just in the sort of transition period when we have programs planned. Like I said, I really want to thank the public services staff for being so accommodating of us. So I just wanted to check in on that, make sure that we'll be in the boardroom next month is what it sounds like. I don't need a motion on that. But if no one's opposed to that, that's.
And with that April board meeting change, I just would get out a lot in front into the public so that people know way in advance, and that if someone can send us a reminder like tomorrow, that would be great too.
Okay.
So
you bet.
Okay.
I would just like to clarify on what Charmaine just said. So we, as a board, we aren't taking this room away from larger meetings just because we want this room.
Well,
that's not happening, is it?
So going forward.
Well,
go ahead.
Okay, so I understand most recently there's been a reason for that. But going forward, I'm not so sure I agree with the thought that we can't meet in our boardroom.
I think it's a great subject for the board retreat.
Okay. That's fine.
Yeah,
That's
right.
fine.
Yeah.
Thank you for untangling me.
Yep, no problem. Yeah.
I do.
Yeah. Okay, any other new business? Okay, moving to old business. Library properties consolidation. So we are bouncing back and forth with the schools. I thought we were going down one path that I don't know how to describe this. That they did not want to accept the donation of the property. They were questioning whether they should take the property, the 2 parcels. And then I got a note yesterday saying they may now be reconsidering and trying to figure out who takes the donation of the properties. So while we've had lots of conversations, I'm not sure we have made a lot of progress. We've raised the level of awareness and education of the school board, clearly, which is progress, I think. But I can't say that we have a clear path at this point. Is that accurate?
I think that's accurate. I really thought we were definitely headed in one particular direction to have the school, when I sat right here or next door and said to you, we're gonna be moving forward, we have agreement, we're gonna be moving towards having the school district on the property. And then, now I don't think that's the case, but then I rethink that might be the case.
Yeah. They are struggling with the fact that, just the awareness that they own the building. I don't think people really knew that they own the property, the building. And then they're struggling with, I think, the issue of the attorneys disagree about whether they can accept the donation without a public referendum.
Yeah, I think the question, the biggest question was if, I think we had said at some point that they might be able to donate the main property to the library. And their supposition was that they needed a referendum for that. Our attorney didn't think so. And that's where we were not in agreement. So we instead said, well, we can be in agreement in the other direction. Everybody agrees we don't have to have a referendum to donate the property. We know, we're reasonably sure that that's the case. No, we know that. And we thought that would go on, but there could be complicated. It basically comes down to the fact that the relationship between a school district public library and the school district that is associated and affiliated with it. The nature of that relationship is complicated and it is difficult to understand. And I think there are a lot of complexities. There are places in the law where they're just not been well tested because there's just not that many cases of anything going on. I think everything can happen the way it needs to. We are in everybody's in agreement that we are in a situation where this is no longer the thing that holds up the progress on the project. That's the most important thing.
Yeah,
that's what we should have led with.
Right.
There are mechanisms to make this happen very quickly if we needed to. But our attorneys are working with their attorneys to make sure that we are doing this in the rightest possible way. And making sure that we are setting up both the school district and the library very clear, very clarifying documents to make sure everybody understands what the situation is, because it is a it's like you find out that you own a library building 50 years after it was built and you didn't know it, right? And I think there are people who knew and then people move on, and I think it's I think it's complex and not necessarily intuitive.
But all goodwill. All goodwill.
No,
Try to
everybody's
find a way. So.
Yeah, I can appreciate the complexity and appreciate the discussions, because it just suddenly dawned on me. Let's say the school district says we'll take the library. So they have the building, but it's under the purview of a separate board.
Right.
So that it just suddenly dawned on me. It's like, well, you can have the building, but the policies and procedures and the director are not under the auspices of the Board of Ed. That's just one complexity that just suddenly dawned on me.
And the liability. I mean, it's like it's a little bit of a shocking thing. It's put in the law in a certain way because it works, but it doesn't mean that it's comfortable.
Oh, yeah, sure.
But that's why whatever happens, if the end result of this is that, as with much of the library property and building right now, if the school district ends up owning it, where it's going to be a strong lease and a very clarifying document that makes sure it's all laid out for everybody in posterity. And 20 years from now, when everybody's moved on, here's the document, and it will clearly lay out what that relationship is. So you don't have to refigure this out sometime in the future.
Okay. Next item is the building project.
Okay. So I don't know if this visual is helpful. But so our architects had a question for you that they needed answered, where they heard that there was a not to exceed $36 million, $35 million. They want that clarified, and then an amount to be bonded of $32 million, and then separately was the belief that that's what we need to clarify. This $3.3 million for this ground source geothermal HVAC system. Much of it, which is going to come back to us, right, is just $400,000 that would come out of thank you, out of our pocket. But they wanted to clarify, and they needed to clarify that that $3.3 million is not included in the 36 and 32, and that they said just from what we said last month that was they didn't quite understand. That was a question back to us, and so it's a question that we needed to bring back up to all of you to make sure that we were all crystal clear on the same page. Because if the $3.3 million of the ground source HVAC system, which we want to move forward, is included in that $36 million, that's a major redesign of the project, which is possible. just want to make sure we understand where we are.
So I prepared a resolution, I pass it out, I can read it, then we can do discussion. Be resolved that the board of trustees direct the library's architecture firm, Ashley McGraw, to design and renovation and expansion of the library with a cost of no more than $36 million. Be further resolved, the Ashley McGraw and their associated engineering firm shall design an HVAC system with ground source geothermal as discussed at the January 25th board meeting. Due to the substantial state and federal grants and subsidies available for energy efficient and climate friendly designs, and the relatively short-term return of a substantial portion of the HVAC costs, it's the intention of the board to finance the HVAC system outside the long-term bond and separate from the project cost. So I think this resolution I'm sure it represents what's on the screen, and I just want to make sure people understand that's where we're going. Is there any questions?
Can I just make a quick amendment to say January 25th, 2024, add that, just the year on there.
Sure. I need a second.
And I'd like the other members of the board know that we did talk very quickly during the finance committee meeting about what types of temporary short-term vehicles might be able to cover this HVAC cost. I assume we haven't gotten anything yet. So my only concern here is we don't know yet what that vehicle might be, if it even exists.
Okay.
Because there is an issue with us taking out loans, right? Because we're a school district library. We also cannot fundraise. So there might be some limitations on finding this separate vehicle for 3.3 million, even though it won't have to eventually be 3.3 million because we're going to get 2.9 back. So anyhow, I just wanted to put that out there that we don't know for sure that it can be done.
And I think that's why the word intention in there is important, because there's a lot of things that need to be clarified before we would get to that official vote.
Yeah.
Right. It's a direction to the firm, the intention of the board. So it's not like we're doing, this is
Gotcha.
definite. So I need a second on the motion.
I'll second it.
Okay. So we had a lot of discussion at the last meeting about the project. Just I'm sure everyone's on the same page.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't think we actually said it in so many words, but it sort of felt like that's where we all ended. And
When they asked me, the two folks that were here
yeah,
had
I could tell
exactly these two different impressions, and they asked Mark and I said, on this kind of thing, I don't want to guess. So.
Yeah.
Okay. Any further discussion on the motion? Okay, I'll take a vote. All in favor, signify by raising your hand. Okay, seeing no opposition, that motion carries. So I think we have an answer.
That's the answer for that.
Yeah, okay. Any other discussion of the bonding? We also talked about we're not going to make the May ballot. So we talked about bond in October. And there's I think that's the intention. There's complications of running an election, all that kind of things that Jeff's looking into. But just want to make sure that's the kind of the guiding principles that we would try to get bond before the voters, before the general election.
And there is work to be done if the date is in October. So our director kindly needs to know, is October the date I'm working toward? So.
Is that we don't need to vote on that, but is that the intention?
I mean, if it's not October, it has to be probably
May of 25.
May.
Right.
That's so a vote.
It could be September, but
It could.
yeah.
Be,
yeah.
But you mostly don't do them in the winter time.
Right.
And by the time you're in the spring.
2 months before.
For a couple of
Yeah,
months.
shoot for October or March, just so people don't say you did it in the winter and you couldn't get out. But but if you're gonna go March, you might as well make. And I having worked with bonding with the district, I would just discourage the board from thinking about May 2025. It's just too far out. So to make it work for October, and then all the subsequent timelines that start coming into play when if you're gonna put it on a ballot, to make those timeframes.
Right. So just with the caveat and asterisk that we haven't run an election in more than 20 years here at the library, the complexity of working with both the school district and the Albany County Board of Elections and all of those caveats. is this where I want it? So I'm happy to put that work in, but I want to make sure that's our goal and that's our shared goal. And if it is, that's where I'll put my effort and energy.
Well, we have a number now, right? I mean, and so it behooves us to just get the number out there and know if we're moving forward or not, right? I mean,
Well, right. I mean, the
Right.
You're exactly right, because you don't want to get your hand too far in the design cookie jar. And then have that not be where we're going. So
The longer it takes, the more the costs go up anyway, so.
right.
So October it is.
Okay.
Seeing lots of nodding of heads for the record.
Yeah.
So,
All right. That's enough for me to go on. So
Okay.
I'll continue to investigate that. If we end up, you'll be right along with me for the journey. If there's weird bumps in the road, which I'm 100% sure there will be, I'll let you know. And if I need to tap people as election workers, I'll be giving you a call.
okay, great, thank you. Meeting room policy update. Charmaine?
I think Jeff and I are tag teaming this one.
Tag team, okay.
So the policy committee did meet, and so we have a two-part presentation. Or to basically update the entire board, and Jeff's gonna take the first part of it.
So do you want your graphic up?
Yep, I think you have page 1 and I have page 2.
Okay, so we've talked with the attorney and we've sought clarification as a policy committee about how we move forward with revamping the public meeting policy. And I think we've done a lot of good work as a library, and just the clarification, when we put any controls on a meeting at the library, we do time, place, and manner controls, right? I'm sure you've heard time, place, and manner. So there are lots of ways that the library can make its public meeting rooms available to the public. We have been doing and looking at everything in a single way, and that is these are freely available to the public for anybody who is not corporate, right? Not engaged in commercial activities, then people can book the room. So a small group of neighborhood folks is exactly the same as a official 501c3, right? So that's the way we've chosen to look at things, and I don't think we can do that moving forward. I think we need to make sure that we already are accommodating the use of our rooms in lots of different ways. And this is in my conversation with the attorney. What she said was, you're already doing this. There are meetings that happen where someone is putting on a meeting of the board of an organization, right? That's a thing. There is a small group of people who want to get together and have a book discussion group that's not affiliated with the library. That's a different thing than a nonprofit board wanting to meet, and that's yet a different thing than a group wanting to come in and put a program on for the public, right? So each of those things really we had been trying to make our policy match all of those things all the time, and even think about the study room use, right? Those are rooms. They're much smaller than these rooms, but the use of that is handled in a completely different way. So we need to make sure that we are having these multiple tracks and that allow then for us to have more formal requirements for groups that are using the rooms in a different way.
Yeah. So, and the umbrella graphic is our current policy and the work of the board, the committee up to this point. We were working with a single umbrella policy to cover all of these areas. And so the attorney said that's not necessarily the best route, which then leads us to further down that graphic.
So we just, we need to start with who is the library serving? Who does the library, how do we want to serve people? Who are we serving? And how do we go about doing that? And under what circumstances is that access provided?
So am I taking this part? Okay, so the attorney's recommendation is to kind of, and Lisa had used this word, bifurcate. Policies or procedures for meetings of different groups, and then programs and events. So there are two different things that we're playing with now. So the policy committee had a discussion talking about that kind of branching off, and we have to just go a little further up and decided to return the large 7.5-page draft that we had to the attorney and asking that person to develop, to parcel out different parts of that policy into these groups, to come up with, we'll call it a policy, but it may be procedures for meetings for individuals. And one of the things that will come to the board down the road is whether or not people have to be card holders for either Bethlehem or the Upper Hudson Library System in order to have a meeting room or to hold a meeting. And then meetings for registered not-for-profits that would be restricted by the manner in terms of number of people attending. So that would be a meeting, but not an event. So Charmaine has a group. She decides to have a meeting of all the members of my group that would fall under the meeting policy, as opposed to Charmaine's group sponsoring a speaker, which would then be kicked over to events and programs. In terms of events, and so that's one side. So thinking about people's use of the rooms for meetings. And then whenever there's going to be an event or program, a speaker, or a film, a panel, that would be covered by events and programs. The library can sponsor those, and they're exempt from the policy. They do that on their own. Any group that wants to do events or programs would be, by the recommendation of the attorney, by a rental agreement that would have certain clauses. And then something to be discussed further with the attorney is, could the library co-sponsor with a group an event and program, and therefore be making that event somewhat exempt from the policy. But we're not sure how to make that determination, the distinction on when will the library step up to co-sponsor or not. So we're not sure that will be part of the policy. So we're talking about meetings and events differently, how individuals or groups can register for rooms for meetings, and then there'll be a new idea for events and programs. Right now, the primary way of doing this, and Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, or policy members, would be through rental agreements, that people would be renting the space. Library. But policy committee members, let me know, or and also
Does that imply, renting to me implies an exchange of money?
Yeah.
Yes,
yes.
not with the intention of making a profit, but simply to cover costs.
Which could be like setup, cleanup, could be security, could be additional people for crowd control, that kind of stuff. But
Yes,
So-
and largely de minimis. This is not like renting a hall for a wedding. This
Right,
would be something that most.
Yeah, it would be very, very much.
Yes,
And just the intention is events and programs for which the group might invite the public, as opposed to meetings where it'd be closed. Like you might have a film showing at your meeting, but it's just for your
members, right.
as opposed to allowing, okay. I just wanna make that-
Right, and then that could be restricted by just a number of people, so that'd be written in. Thinking of those being small, because once you get to like a speaker just for your group, could be 100 people. By the time you get done with it, that will start getting bumped into more of an event or program.
So one of the things that sort of recent events have made very clear to me is that we are woefully unprepared for a surprise crowd control event. Whether that was, happy, I keep using the impromptu Taylor Swift concert, which would never happen, but just, I would want to keep making things negative. There are, lots of things that are super popular where we are just, when we do a large program, we know it's going to be a large program. We are geared up for it. It's literally 9 months of planning to make sure that happens. It's a lot less notice for us to have it. And I wonder what would happen on a Friday night if we didn't have, any notice at all and something happened in here, we call our friends across the street and try to manage it best we could. So I think the way we're using the room right now, we have this, if you read the current policy, every meeting is open to the public. That's and that really is that registered. So we're using that for everything. And that is the most difficult way to do that, and probably not the best way to be doing that. So one of the ways, this sort of individual, if you look on the left-hand side, this card holder, a card holder, either an Upper Hudson Library card holder or a Bethlehem card holder, and that is a decision point for the board to make, may check out the room, reserve it in advance, use it for a certain number of hours in a month, and that room is closed. And for their exclusive use, it then becomes a library record. What goes on in there is like checking out the book. You have exclusive use of this book. That the manner restriction we would put on that is something about how many people are in that individual card holder, 20, I can imagine a number like that in there, where a person would check out that room and have exclusive use of it. No, you don't have to let other people in the room. It's yours to use as long as you're not, selling all these, you can still have all our restrictions about, no business can be transacted in there. Then sort of the way that we're doing things for everybody right now, the way we're letting out the rooms would really be only for registered nonprofit 501c3 entities that exist, right? So that's that registered not-for-profit with some attendance restriction, maybe about 50 or so. Happy to talk about that number. Those have to be open to the public because that is the way that these open public meetings. We are allowing them to be used for free because we are a nonprofit government agency and a nonprofit, and we have a public good, and these other nonprofits also have a public good. That's why they're a 501c3, right? There's a public good that to be done there. These are and we are allowing them to use our rooms for no cost because they are registered and that they actually exist as a 501c3 entity. They can use the room. Anything that's not neither of those things, the individual checkout of the room or the registered nonprofit moves over into this other area, and that's where we said basically like the Bethlehem Historical Association. It's a library sponsored event. It's we work in tandem with Bethlehem Historical Association to get those to get the speakers in. They're responsible for doing that, but it is a library program. It is in our footnotes. It is a library event for all intents and purposes. Anything that doesn't fall into those restrictions would move into the rental agreement where the space would be available. And again, because they're renting the room, just like in lots of other, like in school districts or whatever, there's just a cost recovery for renting the room. That room is allowed to be closed. It doesn't have to be open because it's not a program. They're holding an event for their purposes, and we would have restrictions on sufficient notice. We would talk about security, all of those things that would be laid out in a much more formal rental agreement, and would be clarified in advance. So that's.
And the bulk of the restrictions that are in the draft policy would be falling in the events and programs column. So the attorney has been asked to prioritize the meetings end of things so that, I know there's a desire to open up the meeting rooms. And I believe the committee recommended that instead of having the drafts come to the committee first, that the attorney's work will go directly to the board. So we can start that. We'll skip that step and get it before the board.
Can you clarify, I'm sorry, I might have just missed it. The rental agreement, it's only for registered 501c3? No, okay. It can be, because that's an equity issue. Not every organization is a registered 501c3.
Yeah, that's
okay. I just wanted to just
not that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the opposite, right? So the meeting, that's the one where it says registered not for profit. That's the 501c3. But over here for your token $20 or whatever, anybody can do it. Yeah.
So
I'm just wondering if someone on the policy committee could clarify. Well, first of all, I'm very happy that the attorney weighed in. I think that's extremely helpful. But so say as an example, and if the Button Club is listening, I'm just using that as an example. The Button Club wants to hold a meeting. Are they considered an individual card holder? Because they may not be registered.
They could be. So if they're not registered, right? If they're not a registered not-for-profit, and we spend a non-zero amount of staff trying to parse out whether groups are. If it's a 501c3, it's easy, right? They're registered, they're not for profit. There's rules about how they operate. It's when a group is just a group and they're not registered. Is it for profit? It's not for profit. It's commercial. What is this? And we have a whole person who part of her job is to parse this all out. That would be, so let's say the Button Club wasn't a registered 501c3 group.
Okay.
Like
yeah, that's my question.
The Progress Club is, right? So, but there are other groups that may be like that are not. They would then just reserve it as an individual person. They would just.
But if I heard this correctly, the meetings are now closed. So if someone were walking by and they saw a Button Club having a meeting today and they thought, wow, I've always been interested in buttons and I want to join that meeting. Can that not happen anymore?
That group, it's not that we're not disallowing anybody. The group has the choice to allow people or not into that group. So sometimes.
All right. So that answers my question.
Yeah, sometimes we'll have groups here because we make everybody have their meetings open right now. We have some board meetings of one What? Well, yeah, not the Booster Club. I'm thinking
The
more.
homeowner association.
It's not, yeah, we have all of that. I'm just trying to think of something like we have the domestic violence board meeting here. They want to come. They're absolutely nonprofit. They want the room closed. They want to meet here as an organization. They are not particularly interested in having people walk into their board meeting. They are officially open and the door has to be open and people can come in there. It doesn't happen. I think if someone were to walk in, they probably would. It has happened.
So I like, initial reaction is I definitely like that. I hosted a program before I was involved in the board that was meant as a small group discussion about a controversial and uncomfortable subject. And it had to be open, and a gentleman did come in. And he did start asking lots of questions, and we had prepared a little bit for the possibility because it's out there that this event is happening. And eventually I think he got bored and left, but it was, I don't know what we would have done in that situation if it had escalated. It was not a meeting we wanted to be open because we wanted to have an open dialogue with a closed group of people. So I think, just having lived that experience, I can think of many situations where that would be a much better protocol to have.
And in the conversation with the attorney, she says, you're already doing this. And she said, let's look at the study room. If you have a special education itinerant teacher in the study room, working with a child, that door is locked, right? So this is already happening. It's just happening. She goes, you've already parsed this out sort of based on the physicality of the room. And it's really about the use of the room more than that. And she said, don't change that. I mean, when there's two students in there studying, there should not be other people who are going in there and disturbing them until we have to kick them out of the room because they've had their hour. And it's that kind of equitable distribution of library resources, just like a book or a movie or anything else. So that's that was just sort of the recognition for me. I was really confused about these multiple ways that the room is allowed for public use. I was very confused about that until my conversation with her back and forth. She goes, yes, it seems very formal, but understand that you're really already doing all of these things minus this rental agreement for people who want to put on a program, right? And that's a different thing.
And the restriction, Michelle, too, is to limit the numbers. That'll be written into the meeting room, whether they're guidelines or policies that you follow. So Charmaine checks out the room for the button club because she's a member. I can't necessarily for the individual room that it might not be 50 and maybe 25 or something like that, based on the kinds of rooms we'll be looking at there. And then the registered not-for-profit meetings might be slightly larger, but to distinguish between how do we cross over from meeting to events. So
for the benefit of the public or anyone who might be listening, I wanted to take a second to kind of clarify the intent of the overhaul of this policy. Recent events, I think, clarified for us that the one size fits all approach was not working, and it really just presented an opportunity for us to look at this. And I want to make sure that no one is interpreting this overhaul to the intention of it is so that the library will never have controversial events at all ever again. That is not the intent. The intent is so that free speech can take place in a safe environment that we are prepared to deal with. The responsibilities of the library need to be set forth and the responsibilities of users need to be set forth. While this policy would not be breaking new ground, these 4 paths that we're describing is not breaking new ground. This would be, and I think this is very exciting for the library. I think this would be a cutting edge policy in that it puts forth all 4 paths and that it lays those out clearly. And I don't think a lot of the policies that we have reviewed have done that, but I think that the most sophisticated policies out there do. And that we're very lucky to be able to work with the attorney because I think the policy committee has worked extremely hard on this effort. And I think we have, Charmaine in particular, we've spent a lot of time drafting and wordsmithing and coming up with ideas. And it's just really hard. And there's a lot of nuance. And it is simply more efficient for the attorney to draft something and allow us to react and put in our preferences within the parameters that she gives us, as opposed to us drafting something that does not include that legal nuance that is helpful, that is necessary, not just helpful, to move that forward. So I just, I know that there are people out there listening, there are people in the room listening. I just want to make sure that the intention of this is clear, and that I think that the library will end up in a much stronger place. And I think that free speech will end up in a much stronger place at the end of this than at the beginning.
Okay, that's a good distinguishing. And the attorney did take our policy.
Yes.
And we'll be using it. So I think be taking up some sections that we recommended and then making sure it's legally viable and then adding to it. So it'd be really a blended hybrid policy. So
Yes, we had all of this stuff. She just needs to put it in the right order with the right words.
Right. Right. And maybe I'll try to just give a little clarifying example. We had conversations about insurance, right? And it is ridiculous to ask a small group that doesn't even exist as a real incorporated entity to say, well, you have to add us as an alternate insured on your insurance. And that just example, that was one of the things really clarifying for me. Like, clearly that's ridiculous, but it's not ridiculous in all situations, right? And so we were trying to write this one size fits all policy, and we were tying ourselves in knots to get there. And the answer is that's not the way it should be done. So.
Yeah, and I would also urge the board members to read it very carefully, think about examples in your own head. And then not let the perfect be the enemy of the good, because I think this will evolve like all our policies do. So we should really look at it carefully and think about things. There'll be things that come at us in 9 months or 12 months that we didn't contemplate, didn't think about. So I think it's a huge leap forward, but I think people should look really carefully when it comes to you.
Considering that things are still in the evolving stage, I am cognizant of the fact that, especially when we went fine free, it was a big issue that that staff was no longer exchanging money, or money wasn't exchanging hand. So with the rental agreements, was that the only avenue? Could it not have been, say, a binding contract or
the types of allowances and restrictions, both, that are available under something? So it will take, like, do we need to have insurance? What kind of notice do we need to have ahead of time so that the library can be aware of the potentially large attendance, all of that stuff. And also that would avail someone to be able to put on an event and say, well, we're going to have 75 people in the room, and just those 75 people that they're going to have in there can't be under the open, can't be done in an open way. And so there has to be a rental agreement, and it really needs to be a rental agreement and not just a contract of some sort.
I mean, it could be a rental agreement for $5. I mean,
I understand it could be a nominal
$3.
fee.
Yeah.
I guess I'm I will wait and see the policy.
Okay.
And it will be a shift. I mean, it's a shift in practice. It's going to be a shift for the public in terms of understanding the different requirements now, because this is going to be different. So I think there'll be a learning curve for staff and for the board and for the public as this will be different. So.
Well, and it seems like your concern, Michelle, is you think they're not dealing with any money now, but there are still fines on some things, right? So in some cases, they are still dealing with money.
Yeah, but I appreciate that it was towards less cash exchange, and now we're putting something back in where there's monetary exchange.
Yeah, and there's the option for the co-sponsor, but we just realized that's opening potentially another can of worms. So, when does the library decide to co-sponsor or not? So that's why that's still a gray area. Sure.
And we should point out that I think one of the things that we realized is that particular type of event where someone is bringing in an outside speaker, it certainly, it occurs, but it is the rarest type. Is that fair to say, Jeff? The rarest type of public use of the library. So I think that addresses to some extent, it would happen rarely, but also I think it goes to the idea that we were trying to write a policy that was largely dealing with the least rare use instead of the rarest use instead of the most common use. So least rare is not the right phrase.
Right, and we're applying all those standards to everybody, including like the lip sync groups, and that's where we realized it was kind of like
it just started to fall apart.
Yeah. Got it. All right, so more to come, much more to come, but appreciate the committee and the direction we're going, so.
Okay, displays and exhibits policy, second read, page 38 and 39.
And I did have a question on this one also. The highlighted at the end, obviously, again, no price lists or other means of solicitation. Is there a way with exhibits to put, is there still contact information displayed?
There has to be contact information.
Okay.
So right the opposite, it is required that people put their contact information.
All right, that's what I was
on
wondering. So if someone
display.
were interested in purchasing a display.
Yes, I think it just clarifies, and again, it's the inurement to an individual or group that benefit that can be provided. That's not what the library is here to do. And I understand, artists are, they're lovely and they are interested in selling their art, and that is fine. The purpose of the library's display space is to have a display for the public. And I understand that these two uses are a little bit in tension, and I also understand the relative not availability of gallery space. And I think, listen, if you want to put your art up and your contact information is there, and if someone wishes to purchase a piece of art and they are really hyped about it, I'm sure they'll figure it out. But it's not the purpose of our hallways, of our display spaces, to be selling things. That's not what it's for. And I think it's an important use. It's a use that serves well the community. We get a lot of good feedback from the public that there's a changing art there. We want to continue that. We just have to clarify that it's not for commercial.
Right, so I'm gonna ask a very direct question.
Okay.
So by adopting this policy, then after adoption, we will not see prices on the bulletin.
That's correct.
Okay, any discussion on the policy?
Sure. And it is a change in practice, because someone who is an artist in the area said to me, why can't we post the price list? And in fact, you all used to do receptions, I guess. They said,
I like receptions.
yeah, they used to do like an opening reception for the library. And when are you going back to that? So I think this, again, it's a change to be, and this it brings into line with the no solicitation and distribution policy. So
Correct. Where we have to make sure that we're listen, we all like artists. They're great, but it's like we have to clarify what the point of the library is. And this is one of our core parts of it being a library. So
Okay, any further discussion on this policy? All those in favor, please signify by saying yes or raising your hand. Seeing no opposition, that.
wait, hold on. I don't think
I thought you made a motion.
Oh,
let's roll back.
roll back.
I make a motion.
I need a motion first.
Yeah, motion to approve, to make this basically binding policy, approve the policy.
All right, so our main motion, any second?
I'll second.
Okay, Sarah, second. Okay, now any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Okay, motion is carried. Okay, so that's adoption of that policy. Now moving on to the study room policy.
This was largely wordsmithing, as I remember. We made like the word patron in there. There may have been something else. We had a highlighted version, I thought, in the packet, but
I think it's the card holders piece, the preference.
we may have like
The
strengthened the last clause.
The first bullet.
This may well be subsumed eventually into the meeting room policy, right? When that sort of, those policies, that set of policies, one larger policy, however that comes out, this may well be subsumed into that.
Jeff, you mentioned in your director's report that all the study rooms were being well used and that there was a waiting list, but that no one had used the other rooms that you had set up as a study hall.
Correct.
Were people on the wait list not notified that there was another room?
Absolutely, they were 100% notified. That
Oh,
was
they
the
just
surprising
chose not
part.
to.
That's why it got reported to me. That in the past, that's why it didn't quite look like 2018. It just started to look like 2018. Where we make this room available or the boardroom available, put a bunch of tables in here, put the chalkboard up, let students come in here and study. And that there were certainly a couple people using it, but it was not like before. So that was kind of an interesting thing, that people really, really want individual study rooms. And those rooms are used for just a myriad of purposes. So
yeah, okay.
To thank the pandemic for.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Yeah,
that
right.
absolutely,
So-
it's a major change. I think a lot of the studying, the tutor type studying happens online. I don't think it has anything to do with the library anymore. There's a lot of like collaborative student tutoring, not tutoring, but the studying together. That's what we see, that, but not even that as much as we used to see. We used to come in here during Regents Weeks and there wasn't a horizontal surface in this building that was free, and that is not the case. So it's just.
I mean, those students just lived through that pandemic, so of
Yeah,
course,
right.
that's what they're used to.
Right.
Right.
So I'll make a
Okay.
motion.
Okay, Charlie, motion, any second? Lisa? Okay, any discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying yes, raise your hand. That motion was carried too, so that policy is adopted. Okay, moving on to the board retreat, March 4th. That's just a note that it's March 4th.
Just to know.
Can I ask a question? So some of the board members talked about meeting before for dinner. So I had a question for you, Jeff, to just check. Can we do that? Or should we just all like show up with our own dinner and take out here at 5? Because
It would be so much easier for me if you didn't. So
Sounded
I think
pleasant.
I'm happy to, I mean, I think we can make an accommodation for food here. I'm not gonna have you come and expect you to work for 3 hours and not have something to eat. So.
yeah, I started wondering, it's like as soon as you have 4 together, it's a
Correct. I think we can
Like, I mean-
coordinate that here during the retreat.
okay.
That's
So
just a,
show up at 5 if you want to have dinner. Or
Yeah.
We
Fair
can
enough.
order, yeah,
correct.
I mean, we can order together, like, we
Right.
can order.
Just have it be part of. the
Now I
retreat.
have my heart set.
On Chef Omar.
So I think in the announcing is just say board dinner to proceed, no actions will be taken. So therefore.
Correct, and I think that's, thank you, Shami, that's the one thing I want to clarify, that the board retreat is for training of the board by our friends at the library system, and that there are no board actions to be taken there, even though we will have a quorum, there won't be any official action of the library, just discussion.
So it will not be.
It's not public, it's a retreat. You know, and that is absolutely allowed, so.
If people have ideas or things they want to be included in that time, just send an email to me. Make sure that those are Jeff and I. Okay, moving on to the other page, any other old business?
I have one.
Okay,
I'm doing a lot of talking tonight. We have discussed in the past how we've been tracking, the library has been tracking the wait times for materials since we went fine-free.
Yes.
And I believe that you reported there really hasn't been a change. I know I've mentioned in the past that my personal experience feels like there's been a change, that the wait has been longer. I have also heard that from other patrons. But I will mention that I just recently put a book on hold. Well, about 3 weeks ago, I put a book on hold. It's clearly a very popular book. There are many, many copies in the system, like a lot, and I'm still waiting.
Okay.
So it has been a very long wait. I just want to put that out there.
Thank you. I don't like hearing that, but.
Right.
yeah,
Yeah,
we should probably do a report or something on that, just to.
yeah.
Is it big?
Is it
I'm
what?
sorry.
I still don't even have the book.
No, I'm just joking because the
kids must be.
No, no. But that did, when Caroline mentioned that, it did make me remember that there are hold times that are longer than normal.
Sorry, Carolyn, we do own 6 copies of that and 5 are currently available. And there's no hold.
Right.
Thank you. I'm just asking on behalf of people.
Yes.
Sometimes it's just the perception.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go take it out, actually.
I feel very obligated when people ask us things to
Totally, yeah,
bring them publicly.
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay, any other old business? Future business, naming opportunities policy?
Yeah, we just don't want to lose track of that. We kind of got sidelined a bit with meeting rooms. If the board agrees, if there's time, we can bring it back up to the next meeting. We got feedback on we call it price point chart. And the committee just hasn't gotten to it, I think.
Can we add the HVAC system as something you can name?
So that,
Can we add the HVAC system?
It's so crazy.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah.
Currently
Is it
seeking,
all gonna be underground now?
well, I mean, a bunch of the hotels are gonna be on the.
Really nice.
Black on a.
yeah. So that will be coming back and the committee Again, just put that aside because of the urgency of meeting rooms, but I can't say we're working on it, but we'll get back to it. But we did get the board's feedback on the pricing chart, and we'll just have to get that back on the agenda.
Great, okay, any other future business? Public participation, any public participation?
Yes.
Sure.
Robert McDonald. I just have a question or a comment or regarding your the meeting policy. I took a photo of the slide you had up there. And in regard to meetings, they were going to be available for individual card holders or for registered nonprofits, as I understand. Let me give an example just from my own experience, and I'm not quite sure how this fits in. And if you think it's worth considering, please consider it. I used to work when I worked for a state agency in downtown Albany. We had a small number of staff there. We had field staff scattered around the state, Rochester, Buffalo, and so forth. Once a year or so, we like to get everyone to come together and have kind of a mini retreat where people would be able to take some time to discuss issues. And for a couple of years, I served as a kind of a coordinator arranging those meetings. Sometimes we did them out in the field in Rochester or whatever, but other time, more commonly here in Albany, simply because that's where most people were located. What we like to do is not stay in the state building because it was too close to work. So we looked for other locations outside where we could have our meetings. And I recall one year we were able to arrange to hold our 2 days worth of meetings at the Guilderland Public Library, make use of their meeting. And so that is the kind of example. I'm not quite sure how it fits into your policy. Maybe you see how it fits in, but I just didn't see it offhand. So I just wanted to throw that out to you as a question, something for you to think about. The other comment I had is that in regard to the building project, I think you had been talking about a large meeting room accommodating up to 240 people. Now I think it's going to be toned down a bit, maybe 200. I'm not sure if that's gone through, but that's still going to be one of the most substantial meeting rooms in the area of any public library. I just took a quick look at a couple of other libraries that I commonly make use of. I go to Guilderland on occasion. Their meeting room accommodates 120. I go to East Greenbush on occasion. Their meeting room accommodates 80. Colony, much larger library, a much larger town than this. Their large meeting room accommodates 107. You're going to have a very attractive meeting.
30 seconds.
And congratulate you on that. But I think that it suggests that there is going to be a need for the library to engage in public programming, to look to make use of that event, not to just fill it up with the kind of events that are now going on, children's events and so forth, but to bring in speakers and events, have community groups come in and so forth. And I think that presents a real opportunity for you. Urge you to think about that and how to make use of it. Please make peace with the Bethlehem Neighbors for Peace. They are one of your key constituents. If the Bethlehem Neighbors for War ever get organized, make peace with them. Everyone should have the opportunity to make use of their facilities to bring in contributions and give people an opportunity to say what they want to say. I wish this controversy about the neighbors would go away as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public participation? Okay, we need to move into executive session.
So someone needs to have a vote to enter executive session to discuss the employment history of a particular individual.
I'll do it. So I move we enter into executive session to discuss the employment history of a particular person here at the library.
I'll second.
All those in favor signify by saying yes. Raise your hand. Motion passes. We'll be moving into executive session. Thank you.
Maybe take a 2-minute break or something.
Sure.